Hey wood people, in this video I cut some pretty steep angles, show you how I clamped this weird angle during a glue up. I almost ruined my entire media console table and almost lit my shop on fire. Not to brag, but I own a 2013 Toyota Camry and she's a beaut. But this means that when I buy wood, I have them cut it for me at the lumberyard. Most lumberyards will do this and it is a huge help. My wife and I are having our first child soon, and these tricks and hacks are going to ensure that I finish this media console table before she comes into this world. I always tape up my pieces before a glue up because glue's messy. And in a minute, I totally do something on purpose to show you when not to take the tape off. Just got these 90-degree right angle clamps and they've been super helpful in making sure my pieces are square when I glue them up. And remember, if it's not a right angle, it's a wrong angle. Make sure to take the tape off when the glue is still wet and not dry. Again, I totally did this on purpose to show you what not to do. I didn't do it on accident, that'd be crazy. I decided to use screws when attaching these pieces of plywood because, well, screws are easy. But I wanted to hide them, so I recessed the screws and then boom, plugged them with dowels. And you can't really notice them, and even if you can notice them, it looks fine. Everything's fine. I needed to cut dados in this media table, so I made this jig, which, let me be clear, I stole from John at Lincoln Street Woodworks. Thanks, John, you're awesome. And I cut a spacer just to make sure the spacing was the same on both sides. And apparently, not once, not twice, but 3 times I forget that shop vacs exist. There we go, Thomas, nice job. Fits like a glove that fits a little loosely. Here's the tape trick again, and I lost some of my footage, which is just super awesome. But when you're gluing together your pieces, make sure they're flush with each other. One of my dividers was not flush. Luckily, I caught it just in time before the glue set. I needed to cut a really steep angle for my table base because that's what my template told me to do. So I went over to my miter saw and cut a 30-degree angle on a 2x4, and you can tell it's 30 degrees because I wrote the number 30 on it. And then I put my miter saw back to 0, clamped that 2x4 against it, and then cut my base piece. And the reason I found out that 30 degrees was the right angle was just through trial and error. And keep that offcut. My memory is like an infant, baby, newborn goldfish. So I labeled all of my pieces. I don't want to forget which pieces go with each other because I've made sure these pieces go together really well, much like lamb and tuna fish. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. I'm using dowels to connect the feet to the table base, and I'm using this really simple dowel jig. Basically, all you do is you drill holes and put dowels in. And remember, if I'm doing it, it's not hard. And I'll put a link to everything I'm using here in the description. Oh, and that offcut I made sure to keep, I'm gonna need it in just a second. Okay, you're getting 2 hacks for the price of 1. I'm putting tape on my offcut and table stretcher. I'm using CA glue and accelerator to attach the two. That way, when I clamp the feet to the table stretcher, the clamping angle is perfect and I'll get an even amount of clamping pressure. If the offcut wasn't there, the clamp would slide right off and it would be no good. I actually found that the blue tape didn't stay on that well, so I bought this extra strength green tape that worked a lot better. I use templates and a flush trim bit when I want my projects to be nice and curvy. That sounded kind of weird. But I've made my own templates in the past. I had my friend make this one on his CNC. I found both ways work well. This tabletop's got some holes, much like Cody Bellinger of the Dodgers swing. So I'm taping up the underside so when I fill those holes with epoxy, it doesn't get all over my workbench. To pop those pesky epoxy bubbles, I used a propane torch and may have left the torch on a little too long and almost burned down my shop, but it's fine, everything's fine. I don't really like how those layers look on plywood, so I'm cutting my own walnut hardwood edge banding. And I'm cutting walnut because I used walnut plywood. I'll cut an 1/8 inch thick piece and glue it to the front of the furniture. Since I don't have bandy clamps for some reason, I'm using 89 pieces of tape to attach it. 89. Whew! Okay, I used a flush trim bit to cut the edge banding, well, flush, and then a cute little tiny saw to make the inside edges square. Creating something that actually functions and doesn't tip over or explode out of some 8-foot boards and a sheet of plywood is exhilarating, and I love it. And if you are ever feeling down about being slow at building anything, just know you are definitely much faster than me. Because if you thought you were going to see a finished product, you are sorely mistaken. So click here for some tips and tricks that have really helped me.